our main mandate is to conscientize young people and to raise awareness to young people on what the African Continental Free Trade Area really means and how they can tap into it so that they can grow their business, so that they can increase trade between and among African countries, which is the lowest when we look at the statistics around the world, because at the moment we are about between 12% to 16%. Yet when we look at Asia, it's above 60% and so forth. So that is what we want to achieve, and we know that the young people, women and small and medium enterprises are the key players when it comes to intra-African trade, and we believe that by conscientizing them, by teaching them, by raising awareness to them, they are going to actually increase or accelerate the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. They are going to increase the trading between and among the African countries, because at the moment, if you look at the small and medium enterprise, they contribute up to 80% of intra-African trade, which is very low, which is about 14%, which means they contribute about 10% of that 14%, which clearly shows that if they are included, if they are given an opportunity, they are going to scale up intra-African trade. And yeah, so basically that is what we do, and that is those are some of the areas that we look into as Zimbabwe Institute of African Integration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And coming to you, Amandla, tell us about Zimbabwe Youth Champions for Agenda 2063. What's your mandate?
Okay, thank you, Statisiwe. So the Zimbabwe Youth Champions for Agenda 2063 is basically a change agent and an advocacy youth organization representing youth in Zimbabwe in advocating and giving youth a platform to advocate for inclusion, particularly, and participation as well in issues to do with peace building, climate change, and also issues to do with trade, basically participation in all aspects. That is what we do with the Zimbabwe Youth Advocacy for Agenda 2063. It is an advocacy organization with the membership of mostly young people between the age of 16 to 35.
Okay, and I'll come to you, Tanatsiwa. How many African countries have signed and ratified the Afcfta agreement?
Oh, thank you so much for that question. And so maybe, at the moment,
maybe you can also add the reasons, if you know them, for those that have not yet done so.
Oh, sure. So basically, in Africa, we have 55 countries, and 54 of them have already signed the African Continental Free Trade Area. 46 countries have ratified the African Continental Free Trade Area agreement, which means we are left with about 8 countries that have not yet ratified. But as of now, Mozambique is almost there because it is already discussing. It has actually passed in Parliament to say that they must ratify. So now it's just left for them to submit their ratification instrument to the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat. So we are left with about 7 countries that have not yet ratified. And then only one country has not signed the Afcfta, and this country is Eritrea. Eritrea has made it clear that it does not want to start continental. They want to start integration from the region, which means they want to start integration within East Africa. They want to start integration within the IGAD, which are the regions or which are the regional economic communities that it is part of before it takes part in the African Continental Free Trade Area. So that is one of the reasons why Eritrea is not yet into that, which shows that it does not have political will as other 54 countries have shown that they have political will. But I think its position is also justified because if you look at the regional economic communities that we have at the moment, which are so-called the building blocks of the African Continental Free Trade Area, you realize that they are not really integrated. For example, if you come here in SADC, we have 16 countries. And you know what? Last week I was in South Africa and I met a person from Comoros, and he told me that they took 8 hours from Comoros to come to South Africa. If I can tell you this, they had to go to Ethiopia first before they come to South Africa. So imagine a Southern African Development Community country going to East Africa and then coming back to Southern Africa, which clearly shows that we are not integrated at the regional level. And this is where it is supposed to start. So that is what Eritrea is trying to say. Let's integrate at regional level first before we integrate at the continental. So it believes in the incremental implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, rather than what other countries are doing. But at the same time, it is also going to miss out, because once the Afcfta is fully implemented, it means that Eritrea is not going to take part in it, and it is not going to enjoy the same benefits that are being enjoyed by other countries, as shown by the Africa as a continent with about 1.4 billion, and this will create about 3.2 trillion GDP. And imagine missing out that huge opportunity, missing out that huge market. It means that Eritrea really needs to reconsider its decision of not signing the African Continental Free Trade Area. So basically, so far, like I mentioned, 46 ratified, 8 haven't ratified, 1 hasn't signed at all. So that is the current status of the Afcfta, and we really hope that by end of this year, all of the countries are going to be to ratify the agreement. Thank you.
Okay, and Amandla, what is the role of women and youth in the implementation of the Afcfta?
Okay, thank you. So women and youth, basically, as a demography, they constitute the majority of the population, African population, and even the world over. For the youth, being a young generation, the people that are going to go forward with all the other programs that are underway, whether be it political, economic, in all sectors. So as such, they also constitute a big demography, a huge demography of people that should take particularly the Afcfta forward. I would talk on the side of women, probably in the cross-border trade industry and also the agricultural sector. Women occupy the primary role of the primary producers of food in our countries, particularly in Africa. The majority number of people involved in cross-border trade are also women and youth, particularly because of the high rate of unemployment in Africa. Most of our young people are unemployed. So as such, they are involved in various informal businesses, informal sectors. So this is the reason why women and youth occupy the majority of the SME population. As such, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area comes into play and can be a big opportunity for women and youth to participate in that. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area is bringing about a free trade economy, a free and open market economy. So as such, especially for cross-border traders, particularly women, there will no longer be the issues to do with duty, to do with tariff barriers across borders. So it brings about a big opportunity for African women and also African youth, who are already the major chunk of people involved in informal trade already, but are facing a lot of challenges along the way.
And Tanatsiwa, from what Amandla is saying, how women, or how do they really get to start trading in the African continent under this agreement? Just take us through the steps. Dzemunu ndine kamunda kangu ndarimawo ndaendesa zvimwe kuGMB ndasarawo nezvimwe zvandiri kufunga kuti ndogona kutengeserawo kune dzimwe nyika, kana kuti ndasonawo hembe dzangu ndiri kufunga kuti ndiri kuda kunotengesa beyond the borders. Where does the woman kunyanya vari kumamisha vasingawanzowana mashoko akakwana pamusoro pezvirongwa zvese izvi vanotangira papi? Just take us through that process.
So semabvunziro amaita kuti vakadzi vari kumusha vasingakwanisi kuwana information or nhau dzinoenderana nechitenderano ichi pakati penyika dziri muno muAfrica. Chokutanga ndechekuti isusu van information tisu tinofana kuenda nayo pavari kumamisha ikoko kuitira kuti vakwanise kuziva kuti chinonzi African Continental Free Trade Area chinyi ende chinovabatsira chinyi kana vati mushure mekunge varima ndezvipi zvinodiwa kuti zviitwe. Saka tikatarisa maorganizations or ma-trade promoting organizations, institutions such as Zimutrade, tinoona kuti ndo basa ranofanira kunge ichienda ichinofamba ichinodzidzisa vanhu kuti African Continental Free Trade Area chitenderano chinoshanda zvakadai. Iwewe kana uchida kuti ukwanisewo kuendesa zvinhu kwako mhiri kwenyika or kunze kweZimbabwe asi muno muAfrica, unofana kuita zvakati. Unofana kuwana certificate rakaita certificate of origin rinotaridza kuti chinhu ichi chakagadzirwa munyika yeZimbabwe. Unofanawo kuwana futi ma-certificates anotaridza kuti iwewe zvinhu zvako izvi zviri eligible here kuenda kunze kwenyika. Nokuti sometimes totarisa munhu lese ari mufood industry, pane zvinhu zvakasiyana zvinofana kutarihwa usati waendesa kunze kwenyika, zvinoenderana nezvakaita sezveutano, ma-phytosanitary measures and so forth. Anofana kunge achionekwa kunzi wakasvika here. Kana usina kusvika zvinoreva kuti haukwanisi kuendesa zvinhu zvako kunze, asi kana wasvika unokwanisa kuendesa. Saka zvinhu izvi zvotoda matraining akawanda chaizvo, nokuti handifungi kuti ringava role revanhu ava vari kumusha kuti vazive nezve-Afcfta. Irole redu isusu sema-organizations ari kuadvocata for African Continental Free Trade Area kuti tivadzidzise vazive. Uyezve chimwe chandinofunga kuti chinofanira kuitwa ndechekuti sezvo chiri chitenderano chakanyoreranwa pasi, chakanyorwa nemitauro yakasiyana kusanganisira chirungu, tobva tatarisa kunana Ethiopia kune inonzi Amharic vakatranslata. Saka isusu chasara ndechekuti tigadzirewo chedu chitenderano ichochi tochiisa muzvirudzi zvedu zvemuno muZimbabwe. MuZimbabwe mune ma-official languages anokwana kuita 16. Saka ngatidzose zvinhu izvi kugrassroots totranslata the agreements so that vanhu vanokwanisa kuchihwisisa sezvachiri maererano nemalanguages avanotaura ivo pachavo. Nokuti tikadangochisiya chiri muchirungu, kune vamwe vanhu vasingahwisisi chirungu, kuna vamwe vanhu vasingahwisisi Amharic, kuna vamwe vanhu vasingahwisisi Swahili. Saka rava basa rehurumende yedu kuti kana tichida kuti tiwedzere ma-export edu kuinza kune dzimwe nyika, ngatifundise vanhu pagrassroot, ngatizviise futi muzvikoro cheagreement ichochi chidzidziswa vanhu muchikoro, so that vanhu kana vari vana vechikoro vanotogurumiwa kubva vari vadiki kusvika vakura, so that umwe nomwe munhu anokwanisa kubetserawo nekunoudza the next person, but through educating the young people, through educating the people in the village, through going to the grassroots. Ngatimbomira kuinda muma-conference rooms tidzokere pasi. It means vanhu vari mupoverty ndevapi? Ndo vanhu vari pasi apa vasingakwanisi kuuya kuma-conference atiri kuita ku-holiday inn kana kumikusu hotel. Saka ngatiinde kuvanhu ivavo katinovafundisa so that vanokwanisa kuwana information yakakwana nokuti kana ukasawana information yakakwana zvoreva kuti vachangorambazve vachitambudzwa, vachangorambazve vachisaririra, of which this agreement is meant for the people. Thank you.
And Amandla, you mentioned the issue yokuthi your organization is also a youth advocacy for inclusion. But in terms of sezviri kutaurwa naTanatsi wapa kuti vanhu kuri kufanira kuendwa kuma grassroots where you go and inform vari kumamisha vari munzvimbo dzisingasvikike nyore vachizivawo kuti so that havasaririre muzvirongwa izvozvizvi. What are you doing yourselves as an organization to also raise awareness on this agreement?
Okay, tinotenda nemubvunzo. So chekutanga sezvataurwa naTanatsi waya ndiyo nhau yekusvitsa information kuvanhu. So isusu seorganization tiri mumayunivhesiti, tiri muzvikoro zvekare, tinoenda sekuti kuzvikoro kumaprimary school tinoronga nemaheadmaster nematicha kuma-tree planting clubs kwavo, kuno-celebrate ma-environmental day, kuno-celebrate any other programs zvinoitwa muzvikoro, mumayunivhesiti and all that. So munguva yatinenge tichiti tiri kudzidzisana zvinhu zvine chekuita sokuti nezveclimate change, tiri kusima miti as well, tinenge tichitopawo vanhu kurudziro neruzivo rwekuti chii chinonzi Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Ndichabata futi even kumadzimai, tine madzimai ane ma-farming clubs avanosangana vachitaura on good farming practices and all that. Ikoko futi tinosvika tichitaura zvekare pamusoro pechirongwa ichi. Chirongwa ichi chirongwa cheAfrica yese, chakagarirwa pasi nevatungamiriri vehurumende nevatungamiriri venyika, vakawirirana vakaitirana chibvumirano chekuti ngatiregei kuramba tiine zvibingaidzo zvinotitadzisa kubatirana pamwe chete munyaya dzezvetrade. Ndo zvatisvitsa apa. Saka nokudaro nyaya hombe ndeyekuti information awareness isvike kuvanhu kumareserva, and as advocacy organizations tiri kuzamawo nepatinogona napo. Hatisati tasvika chaipo but tiri kuzama kuti information isvike kuvanhu.
Imimi Tanato, ndezvipi zvamati maita to engage with the grassroots muchivadzidzisawo, because atingamiririwo boka wanika kuti iri ndo rinofanira kuita. We should all be seen to be doing something in terms of disseminating information inobatsira veruzhinji. Imimi maita zvipi sesangano re-Institute of African Integration?
Thank you so much nemubvunzo yoyo. So isusu pachedu chinhu chakaita kuti tivepo ndechekurealiza kuti pasi information haipo. Saka isusu basa redu nderekubridge the gap, information gap that is supposed to be disseminated by the government, the trade support institutions and so forth. Tichinoisvitsa kuvanhu because sometimes hurumende inokwanisa kuita ma-negotiations and they are exhausted. Saka isu chedu ndechekutsvaga information kubva kuhurumende, kubva kunana Zimutrade, tichinoidzisa pasi. Dzimwe nguva tinosi-organiza ma-workshop ekufundisa vanhu kuti ma-products avo kuti ave ready for export vanofanira kuita sei. Ende tinobatana nemapoka akaita sana Zimutrade zvakare, tobatana zvakare nemapoka akaita sana International Trade Center, todzidzisa vanhu maererano nezvinhu izvozvizvi kuitira kuti mangwana kana vakuda kunotrada under any trade agreement vanotanga varifair kuzvinhu zvavakafundiswa vobva vachiimplementa kuitira kuti vakwanise kutrada. Chimwe chatinoita futi ndechekuraise awareness pamaprograms anoita kuti anobatsira vanhu kuti vakwanise kuexporta their products. For example, we have been working with Zimtrade on raising awareness about the next she exporter, which is a program yakagadzirirwa kuti mukadzi wese angava wekumusha kana kuti angava wemudhorobheni angava anowana information kana asingawana information angava akadzidza kana kuti asina kudzidza as long as ane business ngauyeka afunde kuti anoendesa sei zvinhu zvake kune dzimwe nyika kungava kujoni kungava kupi kwamungafungira kuti munhu angada kutrade achiendesa kozoita zvakare Eagles Nest incubator program yatinofundisa zvakare vanhu tichivapa information mumagroup atakagadzira angava eWhatsApp umo matinenge tichivapa information kuti kune program yakati ende izvozvi vanhu vanokwanisa kuita vashanu muma WhatsApp groups atakagadzira aya vakakwanisa kuqualify for this year's program zvichiratidza kuti there is impact and also people are also taking lessons from the project from the programs that that we are providing for them to actually apply for these opportunities. Saka ndo zvimwe zvinhu zvatiri kuita zvakare Zimbabwe Youth Champions for Agenda 2063 is actually our partner in our project where we are saying we are the African Continental Free Trade Area accelerating the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area as young people, youth and SMEs. Saka tina project zvakare even kuma universities atiri kuita ekuti tinofundisa vanhu vekuzvikoro tinopatina nema universities tofundisa vana vechikoro kuti African Continental Free Trade Area chingava chinyi uyezve chinorevei kwauri iwe semudzidzi chinorevei kwauri iwe semutengesi chinorevei kwauri iwe semwanakomana kana mwanasikana. Saka those are some of the things that we are actually doing on the ground to ensure that everyone is not left behind, be it you are from the rural area, be it you are from the marginalized of the marginalized communities. Of course, we haven't really exhausted everything that we're supposed to do because we do not have enough resources. But with what we have at the moment, with the power of the social media, we have managed to reach out to a lot of people. We are now in a digital era. We are working with Generation Z, who is, whether they are in the rural areas or they are in the town, you realize that they are always online. They are selling their products online. They are doing whatever online. So we realize that we need to tap in into that market so that we can conscientize them about the African Continental Free Trade Area, so that they do not, no one is left behind. And yeah, so basically those are some of the things that we've been actually doing. But I know that we really need to do more, and we really need to partner more and effectively with the development partners, with the Zimtrade, with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, with Ministry of Women and Small and Medium Enterprises, Ministry of Youth, and so forth. But at the moment, I can tell you that we've done some things, and we are still looking forward to go deeper and reach everyone, so that no one in Zimbabwe is going to be left behind. Thank you.
Okay. Earlier, Amandla mentioned that women they do a different livelihood projects. Some are cross-border traders. Let's talk about opportunities that are available for those who are not into manufacturing products, but who want to go and buy different products for resale in the country. What opportunities are available under this agreement?
Okay, thank you. So I shall start from the objectives, major objectives of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. It's to open up markets, to open up borders, to bring about development, to promote trade in Africa. Tirikuti kutrade pakati kwenyika dzakasiyana siyana kwave easier, kuchave nani kana nyika dzese dzikange dzabatana dzawirirana dzaratifya uye dzakuita implement chibvumirano cheAfrica Free Trade Area. Saka nokudaro tichitarisa kuti madzimai nemayouth ndo vanhu vakawanda vari into the cross border trade. kana tikange taimplementa Africa Continental Free Trade Area, tiri kuti zvatove much easier kuti vanhu vapfuure nezvinhu zvavo pamabhodha, whether amai vangu vari kubva kudomboshava vati regai ndinotengesa madhoera angu kuSouth Africa ndigonodzokawo nezvimwewo zvekuSouth Africa kana maZambia kana chinyi. Zvakureva kuti kana chibvumirano ichi chave kushanda muno muZimbabwe nekuTanzania kana kuti muno muZimbabwe nekuSouth Africa, pakucrossa mabhodha hapachanyanya kunetsa sezvazvinosimboita kuti panotanga kunzi tinoda duty yemari yakati, zvinhu zvamapinza izvi dai mauya nazvo zviri 7, izvi zvakati zvadai. Africa Continental Free Trade Area iri kurerutsa mashandiro atinoita anoita vanhu panhau dzetrade. Basically ndo major opportunity iripo. Zvekarewo again tinoona kuti panoita cross cultural exchange yakanyanya. You'd see kuti probably a person coming from East Africa or from West Africa, bringing in probably material like machira to Zimbabwe, ekusona and all that. It brings about a change economically, tawana mari, but also even culturally. We are learning a lot from within Africa. So particularly Africa Continental Free Trade Area, its major aim again is been to bring about that Ubuntu, that Pan-Africanism. Kuti tiri vanhu vamwe chete, chinove chinhu chakanga chatangwa kubvira kudhara from originally kutanga kweOrganization of Africa Union kuchinana Kwame Nkrumah kuti ngatibatanidzei nyika dzedu tive vanhu vamwe. So now with this implementation, it is the realization of that dream, of that goal yekuti let Africa lead its development process. So basically this is the major opportunity that will come about with the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Thank you.
Okay, while you're still on that, maybe you can also unpack to us the Afcfta Women and Youth Protocol. What is it about?
Okay, thank you. So, like I had mentioned earlier, that the participation of women and youth within the context of trade is a very big issue. This is the reason why within the agreement of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, they also included a protocol to do with particularly this demography of the population, the women and the youth. It is because they constitute the huge number of people mainly involved in trade, particularly in Africa. So the protocol on women and youth, it is still under negotiations. All the other protocols, some have been agreed upon, some are still under negotiations. So the protocol on women and youth is also still under negotiation to see how can this particular sector, women and youth in trade, can truly exploit and benefit and also participate in Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So it is a very important a protocol, and everyone within the sector is very happy that the agreement on Africa Continental Free Trade Area acknowledged that this sector is a very important sector and should also be recognized within the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Yes.
Thank you so much. Tanatswa, what, or rather, you mentioned that one country, I think you said Eritrea, if I'm not mistaken, is not part of, has not signed this agreement because it wants to first be involved in its own regional agreements, that is the EAC. So how does the Afcfta then work with existing regional trade areas?
Okay, so basically the existing agreements that are there, the African Union actually recognizes 8 regional economic communities, which comes from the 5 regions that we have in Africa, and they are recognized as building blocks to the Afcfta. So it means that Afcfta is not removing these agreements. It is actually being complemented by these agreements because there are certain things that they have already achieved prior to the introduction of the Afcfta in 2018. So if you look at SADC, they are already integrated in one way or another. And what the Afcfta has to do is to just harmonize the agreement or the SADC agreement or the African Continental Free Trade Area agreement. I guess you get it.
Yes.
The Afcfta is also there to unite all the 8 regional economic blocks to become one. Why? Because if we continue to trade like that, like each and every country is in its own trading agreement, or they are in different or 2 or more trading agreements that are in existence. It means that there are going to be overlapping of membership, and overlapping of membership is problematic because it actually attracts trade diversion, confusion, and all other sort of things that you may think of. Like if you are, it's like being a part of different organizations that focus on the same agenda. It becomes confusing to the people who are on the ground, who are there to trade and so forth. So the Afcfta seeks to harmonize all these agreements so that people do not get to be confused, because now they have an agreement that tells them that if you want to trade with Zambia, under the Afcfta, these are the tariffs that you are supposed to pay for this for these products and so forth. So basically, the Afcfta really recognizes all the 8 regional economic communities that we have in Africa, and what it seeks is to actually work with them to ensure that the Afcfta is successful, to ensure that it builds from the successes and learn from the weaknesses of these regional economic blocks in order to come up with an inclusive, sustainable trade agreement in Africa, something that was lacking before it came into play, because this was an idea that came, like what Amandla mentioned, in the 1960s, but it is only being implemented today because we were fragmented. We were divided, and what we need as Africa is to unite so that we build the Africa we want. We build a united and prosperous Africa as per the specification by the Agenda 2063. Yeah, so basically the Afcfta and the existing regional economic blocks, they are one and the same thing. And what is really, if you look at Southern Africa Customs Union, you realize that it has already came up with an agreement that seeks to harmonize, or that seeks to align the SACU into the African Continental Free Trade Area, something that has to be done by the other 8 regional economic communities to ensure that we build a one African market, we build a one single market, we build a unified market across Africa. So, yeah, basically that is it.
Okay, indeed, it is Capitalk 100.4 FM, and this is the exchange where we are looking at opportunities that are presented by the African Continental Free Trade Area. So someone is coming through our WhatsApp platform, Anzi. Hello, Spatisiwe. How are these guys recognizing the most stigmatized sector, which is persons with disabilities in the African Continental Free Trade Area? Are they including them in the decision making so that they can be at par with others? This is Kazumbuleni. Thank you so much for that question. You can respond to Kazumbuleni. I don't know, Tanatswa or we give it to Amandla.
Okay. So basically, this is simple, because what the African Continental Free Trade Area is doing is to ensure that it provides an inclusive trade agreement which does not leave anyone or any place behind. And like what I mentioned earlier is that there are some protocols that are already being discussed under the African Continental Free Trade Area. And one of the things that they are looking at are the non-tariff barriers that are being faced by people in Africa. Non-tariff barriers affect both the people living with disabilities and the people who do not live with disabilities. What are they? These are border delays. These are sometimes exorbitant prices that they are being charged at the border. These include the bureaucratic pathologies, be it when they want to access the certificate of origin or something else. But what I can say is also that what really needs to be done is the country, because the countries are the main implementers of the Afcfta, not the Afcfta Secretariat itself. What we need to do as countries is to come up with national implementation strategies that are inclusive, that includes people living with disabilities, that includes young people, that includes women, that includes men and everyone whom you may think is disadvantaged under the existing trade agreement. So the national implementation strategies are the ones that are going to talk specifically to say this group of people who are being marginalized, they are supposed to be treated like this when they are at the borders. And when they are developing the infrastructure, they have to ensure that the infrastructure is favorable for the people living with the disabilities. Because we have seen that at the borders, we do not really have good infrastructure that is meant for people living with the disabilities. And that is at the national level. The nations really need to ensure that they improve these facilities so that everyone is not left behind and no person or youth place is left behind. So what I can say is the ball is in the hands of the nation to say that the people who are marginalized are supposed to be treated like this. And this is what we are doing. This is how we are building our infrastructure to ensure that when they are at the border, they can move smoothly, they can communicate smoothly without any impediment that they have been facing prior to the coming in of the Afcfta. So basically, there are certain things or certain measures that are being put in place, and the national implementation strategies is one of those. Thank you.
Okay, we are fast running out of time. So, Amandla, your analysis of on the successes that have been recorded so far in terms of the implementation of the Afcfta.
Okay, thank you. So, to begin with, already we have about 8 countries who are already at the stage of trading within the confines of the agreement of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. These countries include Egypt, Cameroon, Kenya, Rwanda, Ghana, Tanzania, Tunisia, and Mauritius. So as such, this is already a success story, and already something is being seen that the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade, which is underway, is already bearing fruits in some of these countries. As for Zimbabwe, we are still at ratification stage. We ratified, and negotiations are still taking place and all that. But as well, we hope to also see bigger and better success stories when we finally join the other bandwagon of other countries that are already trading under this agreement. So the agreement will definitely particularly strengthen issues to do with industrialization. Within our national development strategy, there is issue to do with modernization, industrialization, revamping the manufacturing sector, all industries particularly trade-related. When I say particularly trade-related, I mean issues to do with aviation. If you want to export, let's say, horticulture products, we need that horticulture products that are perishable. We need a good aviation industry. Our railroad, our roads, all that infrastructure, all need to be in place in order for Zimbabwe and Africa at large to really realize a success story under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. But as for me personally, I am happy at where we are because we are seeing more and more countries ratifying and also going to implement this. Like Tanatswa said that there are about 54 countries, 46 of them in Africa have already ratified. So there is political will. And I think much more can still be done, but we are happy with the success strides that have already been made so far. Thank you.
Okay, and Tanatsiwa, as we wrap up, your own analysis in terms of successes that have been recorded in the implementation of this agreement.
Yeah, when an agreement comes, people have higher expectations to say this is supposed to be done by this time and so forth. But what I think is the Afcfta, as a secretariat was formed about less than 2 years ago, I think they have done a lot of things. For example, the Guided Trade Initiative, which Amandla has already mentioned, which was launched by the Afcfta secretariat in 2022 to actually accelerate trading amongst the African countries under the Afcfta. So this pilot phase has actually been successful because we have seen people accessing the rules of origin, the certificate of origins in countries such as Rwanda, Tunisia, Ghana, Kenya. We have seen young people actually accessing this certificate of origins. But what really worries me is whether the SMEs are actually getting these certificate of origins. I can say no, not yet. It is very difficult for them to access this, and they are really expensive for them because you have to use it once, and sometimes it may be very costly for you because you have to pay for it. That explains why the bigger companies are actually benefiting more than the smaller companies under the Guided Trade Initiatives between 8 countries that are taking part in it. And then when you look at the Pan-African payment settlement system, which is a digital platform that allows cross-border payments in currencies under the Afcfta. In Africa we have about 42 currencies, which are very different and unharmonized. So we need a platform which allows us to trade with our currencies, but without going to US dollar, without going euro, without going to British pound and so forth. So the Pan-African payment settlement system is something that actually does that, and it was launched around 2021, and there is already a pilot phase that is being implemented by the Afrexim Bank as well as the African Union Commission, and then the ITC, International Trade Center, and the Afcfta also came up with the Africa Trade Observatory, which is a web portal that provides data and analysis on intra-African trade flows, as well as market access conditions and trade opportunities. So it enhances transparency as well as information sharing between and among cross-border traders in Africa. And this is very important for the people because they get to understand which markets can I tap in, which market can buy my products, and so forth. So basically, those are some of the things that have been implemented. And because of time, I can't talk more about the e-tariff books. I can't talk more about the online negotiating forums that have been implemented, the monitoring and elimination of non-tariff barriers platforms that are there. And we also have the new application that was launched by International Trade Center and the Afcfta, which is called the Afcfta Glossary application, which can be found on Apple Store or